Hi creators, it's Claire from Springworth and it's time for a scrapping challenge. This time I'm going to make a little carry case for my embroidery scissors. Now these are the crane scissors from the Victoria and Albert Museum, the V&A in London, and they're quite a few years old now, but they are still sharp as anything. And I'm going to introduce a new scrap fabric. So I have this really kind of bold print. This is all I have that I stole from a friend. And then I'm going to pull in some colours you've already seen. We've got the teal, we've got the kind of dark red, a tiny bit of grey, and then pulling out some more of the colours in that fabric. I've got purple, a little bit of this bright green, and then the classic 20-cent remnant scrap from the charity shop in that really bright pop of yellow. So like there are bright pops of yellow through here, and I really just think that's going to lift the whole thing. So I need to work out what size pouch I need to make, what size fabric. I imagine it's going to be folded in like a tie shape, like a triangle with a little tie at the top, and then the scissors kind of slide in. And then are covered and protected, and also to protect everything else, because I've been traveling with these and that would have been really useful. So thinking miniature squares, like some of the strips are pretty thin, that's about 3 inches, so you know I could fold that in half and then with seam allowance get like 1-inch squares. So that's currently the plan. Let's see how this project comes together. And I'm going to make this a kite shape, so that it's going to come out and then a really wide angle to come down to a really sharp angle. And I'm going to do this with a seam allowance built in, so I don't have to think about that. I'm going to come up on either side. So I want them to be quite snug. So I'm going to come in here. That's probably not enough seam allowance. Obviously slightly bigger in this scenario is better because I want them to actually fit. I want the two front pieces to join in the center, so that there's only one layer on the front of the scissors and one layer on the back. I don't want them to be too padded. What I'm not too sure about is how these sides are going to work. If I want this, I probably want it to fold in shorter. So when I fold this across, I actually probably want it to end here, so that there's a really nice easy opening to slot the scissors into, probably even lower. But that means that this angle, there'll probably be an angle on here, and I'm not quite sure what that is. So instead of guessing, this is why I am making a paper template. It's a little bit long. I'm wanting to finish here. So it looks like that's actually an angle down like that. It's a very cute deco fan. And then this would come across. This would come across. Be helpful if they were the same height. I can just trim that out. Obviously I can make sure this is symmetrical just by mirroring. And then I'll probably bias bind the whole edges and then ladder stitch down the center, because I'm happy to have it as a feature. And then they're just going to slot in and sit in there. Now obviously this is going to be slightly smaller. I'm hoping for the finish to be around there so you don't have to reach inside when you want to get the scissors out. They just kind of slot. So now I've got the template. You can see I'm really not going to need very much fabric at all. So I'll probably just make this into a square that's just over 4 inches. And then I can trim up the sides that I need. I can kind of shimmy the square around a little bit to make sure I cover off those edges. So I'm probably just going to use 1 strip of those scraps, which is good because I only have 1 in grey, and then just a small amount of these. And I'm going to trim them to half the narrowest width. And I'll probably keep them just the height of that fabric. So it's going to be half the green strip, which is basically 2.5 inches. So I'm going to start with a 1.25 inch strip. One of the things you can never be sure of when you buy fabric from the charity shop is exactly what the fabric is. And I just melted this yellow when I hit it with the iron. It was a rectangle when we started, but at least it's just a tiny piece. Here then are my 2 sides, and I was going to just strip these up and rotate them, but if I realize if I rotate them, my 2 red pieces are going to be in the same spot. So I'm actually going to do a top of the world aspect to this, and I'm going to attach the top and bottom to make a tube so that I can have lots of different orientations. I have then 2 tubes for a kind of trip around the world, but it's going to be a little bit more random. Trips around the world are generally sequenced, staggered. I'm going to try to make this so that no 2 colours are next to each other, but it's pretty random, so I'm not sure if that's going to be possible. They are true to size, so I'm going to cut these strips now 1.25 inches so that hopefully they finish more or less square. this is my final arrangement. It's not perfect because I do have 3 reds every other row, but other than that, I just hope that I'm going to have enough by the time I've taken the seams off. One finished square, very scrappy. I am not a person that matches points, clearly, particularly when it comes to just a project that's just something I'm going to use. And I think what's happening is I think the yellow is actually shrinking. Like the yellow is really inconsistent. Like if you look at the seams are fairly consistent, but that yellow is really variable. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I dug out my batting scraps, so I will go through those. I'm ready to do the quilting part. So I've got the outer, the inner layer, the frankenbatting, the template, which I'm still pretty happy with the size of. I've just made some bias up quickly. So I quilted this, and you saw I basted just a plus sign because I didn't want to bury any threads. So I figured that was the easiest way to start in the center, work outwards. And I just did a really long stitch. And that looks really good. It was easy enough to pull out the basting thread, particularly because I changed to grey so that it was a different colour, and it was really super easy to see that I was pulling on the right thread. So now I'm going to trim this to the template, and then I'll add the bias binding edge. I hand finished the back of the bias just because it was so small and I loved the invisible thread look. So now I will just ladder stitch up these 2 front sections, and I will have a little pouch for my scissors. One finished scissor pouch. I do absolutely love that little chip basket style, and I figured out that with my enlarged top point I can tuck them in so they're really nice and secure. Absolutely love it. The large print, large pattern flowers didn't come out really in the small squares, but I should have probably known that, but I love it anyway. Love the colours, love everything about it. I'm just really quick project to use up a really small amount of scraps. So if you only have a small amount of scraps and you're looking for a project, this would be absolutely perfect. You could obviously make it any shape you wanted. It doesn't have to have the center bias. That was the design feature I chose. You could have that quite simply on the side. Yeah, personalize it, make it yours. I hope you've enjoyed this scrappy challenge, and stick around for some more because obviously I have more scraps.